What's up, everyone? In this video, we're going to follow up our last lesson on working with shapes and explore a bit about how to modify them, tweak them, and make them your own, customizing them. Let's get started. I'm starting here with a blank artboard, any size, and I'm going to grab my rectangle tool. And as I draw out my rectangle, I can grab it with my selection tool. Again, I can shortcut that by hitting V on the keyboard. I can move this rectangle around. Now, I'm just going to move over a little so we can see it off the artboard. You can see it's a white rectangle. If I click off of it, it's deselected. To click back on it, I click anywhere on the shape. If I had a few shapes here, and I'll just draw a couple other rectangles, and I want to select multiple, I could do this in a few ways. I could drag a selection box with my selection tool over all of them, and all I have to do is touch an edge. I don't have to select the whole thing. Just barely touching it is enough to select them all, and then move them around. I could also do them one at a time by selecting one and then holding Shift, and selecting another, and another, and another, or deselecting by clicking it a second time while, again, holding Shift, so that I can grab groups of objects. If I wanted this group of objects to stay as a group, and I'll hold Shift and add this one back to it, I can do that in a few ways. I can right-click, choose Group, or Object, Group, or easiest, Command, or on a PC, Control-G. So Command-G groups them. Now, I click off. Just by clicking it once, it grabs all of these. If I want to ungroup, same idea. Right-click, Ungroup, Object, Ungroup, or Command-Shift-G. And now if I click off, when I click back, I'm just grabbing the individual object. All right. Now if I grab this rectangle with my selection tool, I can change the height and the width, which we discussed in the previous video. But if I grab this with my direct selection tool, it allows me to grab each individual anchor point. And with those anchor points, I'm going to click off, and if I click on just one anchor point, you can see how it turns blue instead of white like the others. I can pull in and manipulate just that anchor point. I could also use my keyboard and hit the arrow key after selecting points if I wanted to edit it that way. If I hold Shift and an arrow key, it moves quicker. And any of these points can be manipulated in any such way. The one limitation here is that we still have 4 points with our rectangle. We can change that by hitting the plus sign on our keyboard, and you'll see that that brings up this Add Anchor Point tool. And anywhere on this line, I can put that pen tip, and I could add anchor points. Grab my direct selection tool, my white arrow, and I can manipulate these. All right, so we can move any of these points however we'd like. And if we wanted to get rid of an anchor point, same idea, hit the minus sign on the keyboard. And that gives us this Delete Anchor Point tool. And we could take anchor points away. So now we can turn that rectangle into a triangle or something along those lines. All right. The next thing I want to talk about, and I'm going to do Command-A and select everything. Command-A is select all in most programs, or Control-A on a PC. And I'll hit Delete, get rid of everything. I'm going to draw out a square while holding Shift with my rectangle tool, and I'm going to hold that down, go to my ellipse tool, and I will draw out a circle about the same size. Now if I grab each of these with my white arrow, I'll see that this is 4 points making up my square, and this is actually 4 points making up my circle. Same amount of points, and I'm going to rotate this just so we can see them the same. I'm going to hold Shift when I rotate. If I normally rotate just outside, it'll free spin, but again, if I hold Shift, 90 degrees, 45 degrees, etc. So I have this. I'm going to just shrink it down a little bit. And the difference between these 4 points making a square and these 4 points making a circle are the type of anchor points they are. These are angled anchor points. These are curved or Bezier curved anchor points. All right, so if I click on any one of these, I see these handles, and I see that curve is what generates that. I can convert any one of these points to the other type. And the way I do that is that same plus and minus underneath that tool. There's another one called the anchor point tool. You can also get to it by holding Shift and hitting the letter C. So Shift C brings up this anchor point tool. And if I click on an anchor point that has a curve to it, it will remove that curve and make that instead a hard angle. Now I have that square or diamond shape. In the same way, if I click on one that's already a hard angle, you see nothing happens. But if I click on it and drag, I can drag a curve out to round out these points. And sometimes you'll see it flips upside down. You just have to kind of go in the other direction. And it's not going to be a perfect circle. See, that was it going in the wrong direction. I see this unexpected result. So I just, instead of going down, I go up. And not a perfect circle, but an oval shape at least. So any of those anchor points can be used, either straight anchor points or angled anchor points can be converted to rounded or curved anchor points. Right. So next thing I want to talk about is I'm going to grab both of these. And right now I have my rectangle in front of my circle. And what if I decided I didn't want that? Right now the default operation for Illustrator is every object I draw shows up in front of the objects before. You can change that, but if we wanted to just change this item, say we wanted to bring this shape to front, I can right-click on that shape once it's selected and choose Arrange. And Arrange, I have Bring to Front, Bring Forward, Send to Back, and Send Backwards. So I'm going to say Bring to Front. Now, Bring to Front versus Bring Forward will bring it forward one step, one object. Bring to Front puts it in front of everything. On the other side of that, Send Back goes back one object. Send Backward goes all the way back. Right? So these are important things to kind of know the difference between. And again, we can right-click or, again, Object, Arrange, and we have that menu there as well. All right, so these are some of the ways we can work around with this. Next thing I want to talk about is if I have something grouped, and this is something I see happen to students a lot, I'm going to grab both these, right-click, choose group, or again, Command-G, is what happens if I accidentally double-click on it. And sometimes students will do this without realizing, and they go to work on something else and they can't. They're locked out. And it's because this little bar up here, you are currently in group isolation mode, meaning that I can only work with things inside this group. Okay? The way I get out of that is I double-click anywhere else. Now I'm out of it. So let me show you what I mean by that. Here's two objects that are grouped, and then I'm going to put a third object here. Okay. If I double-click on these, when I try to grab this, I can't. Nothing happens. The only thing I can affect right now is objects in this group, and I can change objects in this group. I can add another, say, rectangle. And because I'm in the group right now, I can either click this layer 1, I can hit this little back arrow, or again, I can double-click anywhere with my selection tool. Now, all three of those objects are grouped, and now I can grab this one again. All right, so working with groups can get a little confusing for people in the beginning. If you see something that's not working quite right, this stuff seems a little grayed out, you can't grab anything, your group's the only thing working, look up at that top bar and see if you see that group isolation mode. All right? So with any of these shapes, we should be able to add anchor points with the plus sign. Right. Take anchor points away with the minus sign. Convert anchor points, Shift-C, convert anchor point tool, and angle things a little differently. All right. And then grouping and arranging. These are some really useful tools to get you started on manipulating and modifying images outside of just those few sample shapes that we have to start with, okay? Well, hopefully that made sense to everybody. And if so, in the next video, we're going to talk about the transform menu and some ways to, again, begin working with and manipulating some of these shapes. So if that sounds like something you need to learn how to do or are interested in, make sure to check out the next video, and I will see you over there.